Africa, a continent teeming with life and natural resources, holds a significant portion of the world's gold reserves. For centuries, this precious metal has been a source of both prosperity and conflict. While gold mining can contribute to economic development, a darker reality has taken hold: a massive illicit trade in smuggled gold. Shockingly, over $30 billion worth of gold was smuggled out of Africa in 2022 alone. This shadow economy, driven by greed and facilitated by weak governance, is robbing African nations of their rightful wealth. This illicit trade operates largely out of sight, hidden from official records and regulatory oversight. It thrives in the shadows, enriching a select few while depriving African citizens of essential resources that could fund education, healthcare, and infrastructure. The scale of this smuggling operation is staggering, dwarfing legitimate gold exports from many African countries. This drain of resources is a major impediment to development, exacerbating poverty and inequality. The journey of smuggled gold from African mines to international markets is a complex and often perilous one. It involves a network of actors, from small-scale miners and middlemen to corrupt officials and international traders. The process typically begins in remote mining areas where gold is extracted, often with rudimentary tools and methods. These miners, often driven by poverty and lack of alternatives, sell their gold to local buyers, who act as intermediaries in the smuggling chain. These local buyers then transport the gold, often through a series of middlemen, to avoid detection by authorities. The gold is often smuggled across porous borders, hidden in vehicles, luggage, or even on individuals. Bribery and corruption are rife, with officials often turning a blind eye or actively participating in exchange for a cut of the profits. This illicit gold then makes its way to major trading hubs, often in the United Arab Emirates, where it is refined and enters the global market. The use of cash transactions and informal networks makes it extremely difficult to track the flow of money in this illicit trade. The lack of transparency allows criminals to launder their ill-gotten gains with impunity. This not only deprives African governments of much-needed tax revenue, but also fuels corruption and undermines the rule of law. Moreover, the involvement of criminal networks raises serious concerns about the funding of other illicit activities, such as arms trafficking and terrorism. The environmental and social consequences of illegal gold mining are devastating. The use of mercury and other toxic chemicals in the gold extraction process contaminates water sources and soil, posing serious health risks to local communities. Moreover, the unregulated nature of these mining operations often leads to deforestation, erosion, and biodiversity loss. The pursuit of quick profits often comes at the expense of long-term sustainability and the well-being of future generations. The human cost of gold smuggling is often overlooked, hidden behind the staggering financial figures. The artisanal mining sector, from which much of the smuggled gold originates, is plagued by dangerous working conditions, child labor, and human rights abuses. Miners, including children, often work long hours in hazardous conditions, exposed to toxic chemicals and the risk of mine collapses. The lack of safety regulations and protective gear makes this industry one of the most dangerous in the world. Furthermore, the allure of quick riches often fuels conflict and instability in mining regions. Competition for control of mining sites can erupt into violence, displacing communities and exacerbating existing tensions. This violence often spills over into neighboring areas, creating a cycle of poverty, displacement, and conflict that is difficult to break. The pursuit of gold, instead of fostering development, becomes a driver of suffering and instability. The profits from this illicit trade rarely benefit the communities from which the gold is extracted. Instead, they line the pockets of corrupt officials, criminal networks, and international traders. This exacerbates inequality and undermines trust in government institutions. The lack of investment in education, healthcare, and infrastructure perpetuates a cycle of poverty, limiting opportunities for future generations. The environmental damage caused by illegal mining further compounds these challenges. The contamination of water sources and soil with mercury and other toxins has devastating consequences for the health and livelihoods of local communities. It leads to respiratory problems, neurological disorders, and birth defects. This environmental degradation also undermines food security and access to clean water, further exacerbating poverty and vulnerability. Dubai, a glittering metropolis and global trading hub, has emerged as a major destination for gold smuggled out of Africa. Its strategic location, lax regulations, and reputation for discretion have made it an attractive destination for those seeking to launder illicit gold. The gold trade is a significant part of Dubai's economy, and the influx of smuggled gold has fueled its growth in recent years. However, this growth comes at a high cost, both to Africa and to the integrity of the global financial system. Dubai's gold refineries have come under scrutiny for their role in processing gold from conflict zones and countries with weak governance. The lack of transparency in the supply chain makes it difficult to determine the origin of gold entering Dubai, allowing smuggled gold to be easily mixed with legitimate supplies. While Dubai has taken some steps to address these concerns, including the establishment of a gold exchange and stricter regulations, much more needs to be done to ensure that its gold trade is not contributing to conflict and human rights abuses. The influx of illicit gold into Dubai has also raised concerns about money laundering and the financing of terrorism. The use of cash transactions and the lack of transparency in the gold trade make it an attractive avenue for criminals seeking to clean their money. This undermines efforts to combat organized crime and terrorism financing, posing a threat to global security. The international community must work together to close these loopholes and prevent criminal networks from exploiting the global gold trade. The United Arab Emirates has a responsibility to address the issue of gold smuggling, given its role as a major trading hub. This includes strengthening regulations, improving transparency in the gold supply chain, and cooperating with international efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. The influx of illicit gold into Dubai has also raised concerns about money laundering and the financing of terrorism. The use of cash transactions and the lack of transparency in the gold trade make it an attractive avenue for criminals seeking to clean their money. This undermines efforts to combat organized crime and terrorism financing, posing a threat to global security. The international community must work together to close these loopholes and prevent criminal networks from exploiting the global gold trade. The United Arab Emirates has a responsibility to address the issue of gold smuggling, given its role as a major trading hub. This includes strengthening regulations, improving transparency in the gold supply chain, and cooperating with international efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. Failure to do so will not only perpetuate the problems associated with gold smuggling, but also damage Dubai's reputation and long-term economic interests.